Movies are the storytelling medium of our generation. I believe it's through film that our culture and values are passed along. Who's the good guy? Who's the bad guy? What's right? What's wrong? In other generations, that was passed on by family. If you want to go way back, it was done around campfires and then around the dinner table. Now it's through movies, like it or not. This quote was said by Peter Lalland, the CEO of Cloud 10 Pictures, and greatly expresses how movies and films are used today.
Although they may have started out mainly as a source of amusement, ever since the early 1900s, movies have been used to impact the viewer's emotions and opinions. Numerous tricks in CGI, cinematography, and makeup techniques have been used throughout the century to increase emotion and add drama to the film. As these techniques have been advanced, movies have become more able to influence and change the opinions of the viewers.
The invention of the close-up emerged in the early 1900s as a way to convey more emotion in films. Early directors shot close-ups from waist up. These directors were still using many theater-like techniques, which, in a way, isolated the viewer from characters. Now, close-ups can be of a character's face, a hand, or a single object. These channel much more emotion and suspense than the original close-up. A large piece of adding emotion to film is learning how to draw the viewer into a movie. One way directors did this was through conveying depth. The old way of arranging characters horizontally across the screen made one's eyes simply skim over them in one glance, giving the shot a boring feel. This was replaced by arranging characters diagonally. This created three planes where action could take place: the background, middle plane, and foreground. In this clip, note how the boy runs to the background before the gardener follows him and the two struggle back to the foreground where the troublesome boy receives his inevitable punishment. Cross-cutting came around at about the same time as the close-up. Even though its existence was known, many directors still did not use it for quite some time. This technique was popularized in the 1920s. Cross-cutting is used to break down a simple action into many shots from different angles. It can be used to show two events happening simultaneously, a character's reaction, dialogue, and a connection between two characters. One example of this last usage is in Nosferatu, when the vampire turns away from his victim as if hearing Alan crying in a faraway city.
Makeup in the movies is not only for changing the character's physical appearance, but also the wounds such as scars, black eyes, scratches, and cuts. Before movies were invented, theater actors used makeup to enhance their appearance when seen from a distance, making themselves more dramatic, attractive, and lotion as needed. Supreme Grease Paint, introduced by Max Factor in 1914, was the first makeup designed for films. It did not melt under the hot light of the film sets. In 1917, the first Hollywood studio makeup department was established at Cellulite Studios. In silent films, heavy yellow makeup was used to compensate for the orthochromatic film, which was insensitive to the red end of the color spectrum. Today, makeup techniques and CGI can be used together. For example, in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, the character Voldemort's face, makeup was applied to his face in the usual way, then with a computer, his face was flattened and altered his nose. Prosthetics, a three-dimensional makeup or artificial appliances that could be attached invisibly or accurately to the actor. To make a prosthetic, first an accurate template is taken from the body, part, or face of the actor. These templates are made by taking a live cast.
Emergency phone call saying
Yeah.
that you'd lost a front tooth.
Yeah, it was one of these very, very front teeth, and I had to wear a kind of like a
Teeth,
like
with
a
a tooth.
yeah.
Get something
How
there.
embarrassing is that?
Lon Chaney Sr., a famous actor who experimented with makeup techniques, was the first one to recognize the importance of characters' eyes. To give his eyes the cloudy look of cataracts, he peeled the translucent white skin from the inside of an eggshell, cut it into circles, and pressed it over his eyeballs. Unfortunately, this, like many of his other efforts, caused pain to the actor. For years, makeup artists used scleral lenses, and these were made from a mold taken from the actor's eyeball. This was a difficult and unpleasant task. The mold was used to make a tight-fitting, rigid plastic lens that covered the entire front of the eye. Scleral lenses were uncomfortable to wear and had to be removed frequently to allow oxygen to reach the surface of the eye. Today, corneal lenses are used. These are more comfortable and once applied can be worn all day. and can be made with any color or pattern desired.
Makeup and cinematography are not the only ways that film has been able to influence people's opinions. Even in CGI, though, old camera and makeup techniques are still used. In The Young Sherlock Holmes, Steven Spielberg uses the first computer-generated character, a 2D stained glass knight. Note, however, that even though this is a great feat in CGI, the shot also uses cross-cutting and close-ups to capture the emotions of the character. A very recent movie that has been applauded for its use of CGI is James Cameron's Avatar. While Avatar is definitely a new step in film history, it is still not made completely of computer-generated images, and therefore must use makeup for things such as dirt, scars, and cuts. The film also makes use of depth, cross-cutting, and close-ups. Many movies, particularly more recent ones, have had definite impacts on our society. One of the earliest films that has had a large impact on history is The Birth of a Nation, directed by David Wark Griffith. The film recounts the events of and following the Civil War, and is oftentimes shunned and scrutinized for its blatant racism and inaccurate facts. Shortly after the movie's release, William Simon started a new Ku Klux Klan in Stone Mountain, Georgia, even though the original KKK had died out in the late 1870s. Simons admitted that the way The Birth of a Nation had portrayed the KKK had inspired him. The Klan spread, and by the mid-1920s, had a following of at least 4 million members in the United States.
Since The Birth of a Nation is a traditional black and white movie, it used heavy yellow makeup.
In this film, Griffith revolutionizes a traditional action sequence. Here, the two boys begin in the background, then proceed to the foreground and reach the climax of their fighting. Griffith also uses cross-cutting to create tension as the Klansman ride to the rescue is cross-cut with those held captive. This technique is called the switchback, which is making many cuts and delays to intensify an audience's interest. Rosetta was one of the first films to influence the matter of law passing. It was released in 1999 and featured a teenage girl who ran away from her alcoholic mother in attempts to find work and survive on her own. The film involves the audience in the main character's struggles by using techniques already discussed, particularly close-ups. The film's release caused a new law in Belgium to be passed, stating that no teenage worker was allowed to be paid less than minimum wage. Like Rosetta, North Country, filmed by Nikki Caro and released in 2005, has had an impact on the matter of law. The film features a woman who must work in the iron mines of Minnesota in 1989. She faces many challenges through the hard labor and the male workers who don't want a woman competing with them. The film was released at the same time as many people were waiting for Congress to pass the Violence Against Women Act, and doubled the numbers of supporters for the act.
This film often uses makeup to give the impression that the characters have been working long hours in the mines, expressed through the dirt and grime on their skin.
Depth is often conveyed through the diagonal setup. In this scene, Josie and her friend are arranged so that the viewer's eye is guided from her in the front to the woman in the back. Nikki Caro also uses cross-cutting. Here, she uses the technique to show how large the structure we are dealing with is. Later in the film, she uses cross-cutting to show how characters react in scenes of dialogue. Another movie that has had a dramatic impact on at least one man's life is a documentary rather than a plot-based film. The Thin Blue Line, released in 1988, explores how a man, Randall Dale Adams, was incorrectly sentenced to death for the murder of a Dallas police officer. Adams was released from prison 1 year after the film's release. Here, Errol Morris uses cross-cutting and close-ups to direct the viewer's attention to the letters HC. Here, cross-cutting is used to show the effects of the shooting. At many times, Errol Morris combines cross-cutting and close-ups, forming a montage of words and pictures, leaving much up to the viewer's imagination. This clip draws the viewer's attention to Adams and his interrogator, who are very distinctly framed.
Film and makeup, when used strategically, can greatly influence and change the audience's opinions on certain subjects, either positive or negative. There can be no doubt that the advances in CGI, cinematography, and makeup have allowed movies to be able to impact a viewer's opinion.